Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining. This is day 18 of Oracle Integration Training, and in this session we will talk about ATP Database, that's Oracle Cloud Database. So we'll see that all the different operations available in ATP Database connections, what all operations we can perform, everything we are going to discuss in this session. So first talk about that ATP database. So as we know that Oracle provided a cloud database, that's one of the cloud database is Oracle ATP. It's known as that Oracle Autonomous Transaction Processing. So we are using the database with OIC to perform various operations and not limited to OIC only. So the same database can be utilized in any other purposes, just like for storing the data coming from VVCS page, or even we can share this database with the third party system so that they can extract data from our ATP database table, or even they can utilize our database table to insert data in that table, and later in OIC we can use data from that specific table. So yes, ATP database can be utilized in all where. So even most of the time in OIC only, we have to do lots of validations in record, and that data validations and implementing the business rules. It's not quite simple to implement using OIC. OIC having their own few functions and the actions, just like OIC having the switch actions to add if conditions. It's also having that. The loop and all, but yeah, it's a bit difficult sometimes when we have to implement such situation. Then that's the time we will use database options where we can write our PL/SQL script. Using that script we can achieve all these points. So yes, we are going to learn all these things day by day. So this session specifically will talk about ATP database and its operations, provided that the ATP connections. So when we are talking about what all operations we can perform using ATP connections, that ATP database connection having majorly three operations. The first one is that invoking a store procedure. So we are going to create PL/SQL packages in that ATP database, and that packages we want to invoke from OIC. That's we can do using ATP database connection only. Another operation we can perform, that we can execute our SQL queries. So if you want to extract data from table and you want to pass write the SQL queries based on that you want to get data, yes, you have options to execute SQL script, and that SQL script is not limited to the select query only. You can perform DML operations like select, and you can use insert, update, all these operations you can perform using that the operations provided by Oracle, which is run a SQL statement. Here you can see in this screenshot you are also able to see this is the configuration page of Oracle ATP connections, and here we have option to select the operation. That operation are, you can see the listed: invoke a stored procedure, run a SQL statement, and the last one is perform on an operations on table. So the perform an operations on table that allow you to perform below four operations. First one is insert or update, and the last one is select. So we will talk about all these operations one by one. So let's first move to that invoke a stored procedure. So yes, that invoke a stored procedures will allow you to invoke in a PLSQL procedures or functions which we created in an data ATP database. So before that, let's have a discuss on that the restriction by Oracle for this ATP connection. So yes, so whatever PLSQL packages or a script you are going to write using that ATP connection, it's having the limitations. That it's having the limitations as you have to that query or the PLSQL code should be executed within the 4 minutes of time. If your query's execution time or invocation of that API, the endpoint ATP endpoint time will take more than 240 seconds, it will generate an error that will cause that error in our OIC. So that while working on that, you have to maintain all these things, that the SQL script you added, or that you perform operation on table, or either you invoke a procedure, that should be completed within the 250 second only. And yes, we have one more options to, for example, most of the time we are invoking a PLSQL procedure from OIC that's taking more than 4 minutes of time. So that's also we have options to create a wrapper class of the PLSQL package, and within the wrapper class we can invoke our actual procedure. So that's a bit advanced, but yes, in our upcoming one of the sessions we will cover that too, so that we can prevent using that kind of situation. And also when we are performing operations on table, it's also having that limitations, that the schema or something that for example we are going to use insert operation on table on ATP table using ATP connection, and that insert operations in the mapping we are going to provide the mapping data, right? So data obvious internally that the OIC is going to convert all this as a XML payload only. So the payload should not be more than 10 MB of size that we are going to provide as a data. So that's we have to be take care about that. And also the operations related to the database we are using, that should have the limitation of 100 MB only. So when we are saying that 100 MB only, so it's cloud to cloud connection, that if that our ATP is a cloud database only, and we are directly going to use ATP in our OIC to access the database, that we having the 100 MB of limit. And yes, if we have the agent for ATP, so yes, in some cases you can have agent installed for ATP. So that cases can be that the ATP, as it's already cloud based database, but why we are using agent for that too. So yes, so sometimes they have to implement security in the database, that outside that specific network they cannot access that database. So at the time, obviously your OIC will also not be able to access that ATP database, even it's already on the cloud too. So that time we have to use agent to make a connectivity with their server, so which we already discussed. We'll see that how agent can be used in OIC too in our one of the upcoming sessions. So let's move to the next part. So that part is about the operation. The first operation, which is invoke store procedure operations. So we have first operation as a invoke a store procedure, which allow us to invoke or call a PLSQL code, PLSQL package from our Oracle integrations. So obviously we discussed that we have the limitation of 4 minutes. That's we have to make sure that whenever we are going to call a procedure, that procedure should be completed in within the 4 minutes only, 4 minutes of time. And if not, we'll get an error. And obviously we have another options to invoke procedure which can take more than 4 minutes of time. We will cover that one too in our upcoming sessions. So let's talk about this one only. So here you can see in the snapshot, you are also able to see in the ATP configuration page, we are able to see that we have to select the options, the operations. When we selected the operation and invoke a stored procedure, then after we are going to get next procedure, which is related to a specific selection of the package. So first we have to select the schema, except that the select queries, we for other two operations we have to select the schema first. So once you will select the schema, all the objects within the schema, object is the package, you will be able to see here, and you just have to select that specific package. And that package can contain more than one functions, and all the function the procedure will be listed in below. So here you can see we that this package we created, and this package having one two functions, that get load count and the validate customer, this we are able to see. So this is about invoke stored procedure, and obvious in the procedure only we can add the options or add the logic to return some values. So the some values can be the out parameters. So if you are a bit aware about PLSQL code, you will get to know. If not, so just I will give you brief on that. You can later have a walkthrough on the PLSQL code, so that you will be get to know a bit about that. Next operation we have a run a SQL statement. So as I told you, when we are using run a SQL statement, so by just selecting the operation as a run a SQL statement, next slide you will get to know, you will get to options to provide you the SQL queries. So here you can see, just for simple purpose I given the SQL query here, and just before going to continue you just have to click on validate SQL query button, so that if your query doesn't have any error, it will ask you to move further, so that you can go and you can add provide the value to that one. And obviously if you will see the select query here, I added the select query is getting data from this table based on the integration unique id code. You can see where integration unique id is equals to, and here you can see that hash symbol is there, hash p underscore id. So p underscore id is the parameters name or the runtime value endpoint name by which we can provide the value, and hash in SQL statement has defines that the parameters, just like in SQL queries. If you remember that VIP report and SQL query, we are using a colon symbol to make that values as a parameter. So same way in OIC here, we are using hash symbol. The hash symbol is going to define that p underscore id is your parameters. And once you will done with the configuration, the same parameters you will be able to find in the mapping, so that in the mapping you can provide value to this p underscore id parameters at runtime. So that's we are going to cover. The last operations we have as perform an operations on a table. So this perform an operation in this table having different operations which allow you to perform operations on table. So you can see this having operations to perform actions like inserting data into table, or we can update the data of the table. And yes, third operation we have insert or update, that also known as upsert or merge. So upsert and merge is a combination of two operations, which is insert and update. So the differences is insert, update, and insert or update, or that we can say that merge or upsert is, if you will use insert operation, so whatever record you will pass, that the same record will be inserted into table. If you will use update operation, so whatever record you will pass, that record will be updated, right? So based on the conditions and all. But if you will use insert or update operations, that the merged operation, so before going to insert, it will check that if a specific record are there or in the table, it will update the record instead of inserting the record. For example, we have E001 employee details in the table already, and if we selected the operation as insert or update, and we pass that again same information, so instead of this time going to create a new record for same employee, it will just update the previous record. And obvious, for using this insert or update statement, the table should have the table which we are going to select should have the primary key, at least primary key there, so that based on that primary key it can specify, or it can find that a specific primary key columns are there in the table or not. Last, we have select statement. That select statement where we are writing the SQL queries, so that based on the select statement only we can extract the data from our table. And also select statement can have the conditions in the where clause. That condition again we can add by adding the hash symbol. And when we are adding these hash symbols and all, so this it will get the data. And one more thing to note here, you can make a note of that too. So when we are providing this SQL script here, that SQL script should not have any new line commands or any extra spaces in that extra spaces or tab in your SQL queries. If you will have the tabs into commands in your SQL codes, just like while writing the code in that code editor tool, we are using that one inter and tab, right? To make that our code is in beautify mode, so it will not allow to provide that code here. In this case, we'll see. So let's move to that OIC instance where we do the practice. So this is our OIC instance where we have to just have a look on that. So before moving to the OIC instance, first I will show you that how we can create ATP connections in OIC, and then we can use that one. So obvious, when we have to create connections, we have to go for that connection. We have to select the adapter. So before that, I will always suggest first use any of the editor tool where you can connect your database, so that you can identify or you can verify that connectivity is working smoothly or not. So in case of ATP database, for making a connectivity, we have agent options. That agent will allow you to directly connect to that cloud database connectivity. So sorry, that wallet term we have to make a connect with our cloud database. So for connecting the database, we require few details. I'm just going to show you that details too, so that you can have a brief on that. So somewhere here we have, let me see that one. So you are able to see my screen here. So when we have to connect ATP database, for connecting the database, we require ATP database user password and the wallet password. So that wallet password we will use while creating connections, but while creating connection with any IDE tools, it's not required. But yes, we require the file wallet file, and we require the service name, which service name we have to use to connect with database. So let me show you the connection of this ATP database in SQL developers. So here you can see this is SQL developer tool I have already installed. This SQL developer tool is known as IDE tool for database, that integration development framework. So environment, so using this IDE tool, that SQL developer, we can connect with the files, the database server. And obvious, for connecting the database server, first we have to create connections. To create connection, we just have to click on this connection side. Here we have plus icon. Once you will click, you will get more options to create connections, right? So first we have to create connections, so you can just give any name to the connections. So just I'm going to give connections name as fox underscore ATP underscore con, or instead of fox I will use fo, fox oracle app solution, fos app con. And now here you can see it's asking the username and password. So we have already user and password handy. So this is the username I'm just going to use to create connection in our SQL developer, so that you will get to know that which all information you require to create connection in OIC. It's the same information we will use. And then we require password here. So this is the password, and after you can see we have to select the connection type. So in case of any that Oracle XE database, that's non-cloud database and all, so we have a different connection type on the connectivity details or the credentials to connect database. But in case of ATP database, as this is cloud based database and we have wallet for this database, so we will suggest go to the connection type and select as a cloud wallet. So that's why like we required IDE to connect perform operations on database, so that we can write code, right? We can write PLSQL code and all. That's why we required SQL developer. Directly you cannot write SQL PLSQL code from OIC only. So here, once you selected the connection type as a cloud wallet, you will be able to see these options, right? And below these options, you have to select the configuration file. The configuration file is nothing, it's a wallet file. So you just have to select the wallet. So just I will click here to select the wallet. So I already having the wallet here. So I will just select the wallet. And the wallet is something that the zip file having all the connection informations, so that they will make a connectivity between this the wallet that with the cloud database, that ATP database. So once you will select, by default service will be selected. So obvious you will have to choose any of the services. So these services you cannot directly use any of them. So whatever services is configured in this database, you have to use that one only. So if you remember here in our credentials, our data service name is ATP DUB underscore high. So same here we have to use this underscore high one. So now we given all the required information which we need to pass. So here I will just select save, so that each and every time when I will connect, I don't not need to pass password again and again. And here before going to connect, I will just test that the information we given is enough or not. So once you will click on test, once every information will be fine, you will be able to see the success message. It means that our connection information is fine, we will be able to connect. So now that just have to save. So once you will save, the connection name you will list here. So I will go and save here. You will see Fox FOS AP con is there. Now I have to connect. So for connecting that one, you just click on connect, or you can just close this one. So I'm just going to cancel this one. So here you can see our connection is here, and that's already saved. So I just have to create a new worksheet where I can write the code. So if you will see, you have to create a worksheet. You will see that one option here. Just click here, and which connection you want to open worksheet. I want to open worksheet for FOS ATP con. Just click here. So new worksheet will be opened, and you will be able to see that worksheet related to this connection only. And same you can find here also. You can see in the right hand corner the FOS underscore ATP is the connection name. If you will click here, it will ask you to select another connections too. So right now I have to perform all the operation in this connection only. So I will select this connection here only. And again, if you have to create table, so we can use table here, or we can perform any operation, or we can write the code. Same code will be stored in this database, and the same database we can access using OIC. So let's go to the OIC to create connections. So this is our integrations applications. Here we have to create connections. To create connections, we have to move to the connections tab. Once you will move to the connection tab, it will ask you to create connection. So yes, I have to create connection, so I will select this create. So once you will create, it will ask you to select the adapters. You know that that adapter is just only the thing which defines us to which system we have to connect. So right now our system which we want to connect is ATP database, right? So that's why here we have ATP connection, ATP adapters available in OIC. So you can see Oracle ATP. The Oracle ATP is the adapter which will be used to connect, make a connectivity between OIC and the ATP database. So I will select this connection adapters, and after selecting the adapters, we have to provide the information, set connections name and all. So here I will choose connection name as S underscore ATP underscore connection. And here you can see by default identifier came here. That's fine. I will not change the role. So let it be as a trigger and invoke, so that we can utilize this connection as a trigger or invoke both. Now keywords description, I will make it a skip. Just click on create. Now you can see once you click on create, configuration page will be available, and the percentage you can see it's 13% only. I just we just added that one. And here you can see we have to provide the information. So what information we have to provide? You can see in the optional one, it's asking the host, asking the port, SID and services. And you can see while creating the connection in SQL developer, what information we given, right? So if I will go to here, you can see in the connection type, we just given the information as a service, right? This service only. If you will select the basic one, you will be able to see the host, port, SID, services. And if you will go to cloud wallet, we have only service option. So that's why here, while creating the connections, I will not provide host, port, SID, anything. I will provide the service. And remember, all this information, right? This information will be shared by database administrator only. You directly will not know that which is that option we have to use. So it can be possible that they having the restriction and they will not allow you to connect. That's why they will tell you that, okay, or when you will try, you will get an error. So when you will consult with the database, they will tell you that, okay, yeah, you cannot directly connect with our database. So we have our restriction based on IP firewalls and all. That's why then you will ask that, okay, so if you have such kind of things, okay, let's go and install agent in the system. So that kind of things we can do. Now here we have to provide the service names. I already take a copy of service name from here. Let me copy and I will paste. So service name we given, that's optional properties is fine. Just hide this one. Now next is security policies. So security policy is that JDBC over SSL. I will let it be the same only because we have to provide the wallet and other details. So for providing the wallet, you can provide the details here, or either you can just upload the wallet file here. So I have a wallet file. I will upload that one too. So once click here, select the wallet file and you have to select the wallet file. So I will just again go to this session. Here we have data details and ATP, and this is our wallet, right, which we added in the connections. I will select this wallet here. So wallet is selected here. Just I have to click on upload so that that wallet will be uploaded to that connection here. You can see the wallet submitted, wallet this one, and after that we have to provide the wallet password. If you remember, while creating the connection in SQL developer, they didn't ask wallet password, but wallet password is required while creating the connection in OIC. So remember, as a developer, when you will start working on any of the project and that project required ATP connections and all, so by the way, you get to know that, right, what all information required to create ATP connections. So before going to start integration, it's prerequisite and you will ask all these informations to the admin team, that who is handling that OIC, OCI, or that ATP database and all, so that they will provide you all this information and you can connect that database into any IDE tool that can be that the SQL developer or any other tools, and then you will create connections. So here now we provided the database wallet. We have to provide the wallet password. So where is the wallet password? I already noted this is our wallet password. So I will select this wallet password here. I will delete this password. Now wallet password I added. If you will see, this is the same password which I added. Now after that I have to select the database service username, database service password. So service user service password is the same as the database user. So here I will just copy the username and I will copy the password here. So now copy ID password we given here. So just you can see we given all the required information. Just we have to click on test so that this information can be saved and checked that is enough or not. So you can see we got process as 100%. It means that the whatever information we given, the ID, password, wallet, everything is fine and we are able to create a connectivity, right? We are able to connect. Now we just have to save so that the draft status can be changed to configure. So let's click on save and done. So here you can see usage in zero integration. Right now we have not linked this connections to any of the integration. That's why count is zero here. Our connection is ready to use in OIC. So let's go back. Here you can see our connection is ready. Even I already created previously connections. If you see previously few of the connections which I already added. Where is this ATP? You can see the ATP. Where is this ATP? Let me search with this name, ATP. Then you can see these are all the connections which I previously created, and you can see FOS demo ATP connections which I use for demo purpose, having two integration linked. One is active, another is inactive. So that all these things you can check here. So now our connection is ready. Our connection name is FOS ATP underscore connection. This connection we have to use in our integration. So now we have to go to integration here, and integrations we have to create integration. So what I will do, I want to create integration in a such way that in request payload I will pass some information. some stored student information or anything, that information I want to be available in the database here, in the database, the table what we will see. So how we can achieve? First we have to create table so that the table can store information, then we will create integration, right? So let me create first table. So before going to create table, let me prepare a request payload. So let me prepare request payload here only, right? So for example, I'm going to create a request payload, which request payload will store the information of a student. So that can be something like name, it can be anything. And after that, for example, we have to pass as class, obvious class will be anything again. So as we have just to provide the structure of JSON payload, so that's why I'm not providing any value here. And after the class, let me provide anything, that roll number, and after that let me provide as a subject. So this four information I want to insert in the table. So whenever user will run the integration, it will pass all these four information. And that's all four information can be array elements. So let me just have a duplicate of this so that I will just, we can see that it's array element. And obvious in JSON, when we have to create array structure, we have to use a square bracket. So this is the square bracket here. And obvious it's nice that you use a structure way. So as this is the this is the square bracket, and this, all these are inside this square bracket only. So what I will do, I will give one more extra tab so that it will be like look good. And this JSON structure cannot directly start with this square bracket, so we have to start with the curly braces only. So the curly braces will start here, this curly braces will end here. So this is our correct structure, but I want to provide some name here to the endpoint. So I will provide the name to the endpoint is student info, and this will be the student info, right? So that's the our structure which we created, that student info is our node, that node having all this array element of the student information. So now this is our request payload. Now we have to create the response payload. So what response you want to return from the integration? So from integration I want to return the response like, I want to return the response as something like this one, a status. A status will be success or error, anything based on that our integration logic. And after that I want to return the count, total count. So the two information I want to return from integration. And obvious with the status I want to give that message too. So message what I want to give is process message, like that. So this information I want to return from the integration. So let's start integration creating. So let me create integration. So what integration type I will select? So as we have to pass request payload to the integration, and that we can achieve only using the application type integration. So I will select application here. I will give the name FOAS underscore ATP underscore 001. Click on create. Now here you can see we created, sorry, we created integration, and in the integration we have to add the trigger endpoint. So as we have to with the request and the response payload, I will select rest endpoint so that I can configure JSON request and the response payload. REST connection I already have created as trigger. So you can see FOAS rest underscore tree connection, which we generally use in our all integrations. I will give the name as a start rest. Continue. Here we have to provide endpoint name. So we'll give them as ATP operations. I will select post so that we can configure request and response payload both. This is the request payload, this is the response payload, and continue. Here we have to provide the request payloads. I will select JSON. Here you can see this is the inline. Click here in the inline, and we have to provide the JSON structure. So where is the JSON structure? This is our JSON payload. So I will copy this JSON payload, paste it here, and continue. So our JSON payload is in correct syntax. That's why it's taken here. Go next. We have to provide the response payload here. So again click on inline, and what is our response payload? This is our response payload. So this is our response payload. Continue. Here, instead of what I want to do, total count, let me add few more columns so that I can show you how we can handle the exceptions too. And after the total count, I want to see that records inserted count. So it can be possible, right? While inserting data into table, we got error, right? So that record will not be inserted. So we want to return that count of that record, such record too. And we'll give the record inserted record, not inserted, sorry, not inserted count. So that all information I want to return from our integration. So let me copy this payload here. Click on continue. So continue and finish. So our endpoint is configured here so that it can configure the trigger, and it using this mapper it can return the response. Now here you can see, after that what I want to do, I want to insert this information into table. Insert information into table, and obvious for inserting this information into table we require something. That what we require something, we require a table, right? So let's create table first. So where to create? So we have to create table in this database only. So this is our worksheet. That worksheet belongs to that same connection which we base same database which we created here. So we have to create the table. So for creating the table, I will use create table, and I have to give the table name. So what table name I want to give? FOAS underscore. This is going to store in student information. So I will use TRE3 for training, for post training, and I will give the name as a student. A student is something that is related to a student. TB is the short name of TB. That's this is the name only, right? You can provide any of the name based on your requirements or based on whatever your understanding is there for that. So this is the table name. This is the correct syntax to create table, and here between these two we have to provide all the columns which we want to create. So how many columns are there? We have name column, so I will use name here. So I will give the name emp underscore name. This is our column name for this table. And what is the data type for this? So let's select the data type as varchar 200. Now again we have to select another column, which is the column class. So I will use emp underscore class. This is our table name. Again I will select this varchar 2. Now next we have as role and subject. So I will give emp underscore role. Use the same, and emp underscore subject. So this four column we added in the table. So ideally we are not directly inserting data into table. When we are inserting data into table, we are adding few more columns, and that few more columns are who columns, that is going to define that who inserted the record in the table, and when updated the record, who updated the record, all this information. That's why we will add few additional column. That column will be like creation date. This creation date is something that when we created this record, and I will select the data type as varchar 2 only, so that whatever record we will push, that record will be inserted into this column. So varchar 2, and creation date is 1000 is fine. And after that, next column I will give is created by. All these are who columns which I'm going to add as extra. And after that, last updated date, last update date, and same last updated by varchar. Now these all are the information who created, when inserted, all these are. But obvious, like when we are following all these things to insert data and all, we are using few more extra column. That extra columns are like OIC instance ID, OIC instance ID, so that later on you can query the table and you get to know all these things, right? So this OIC instance ID, we know that earlier in generation 2 it was numeric value, but in generation 3 it's got changed to varchar 2. So I will use varchar 2 only here. And it's not limited to OIC instance only. We have to add few more columns like integration name, where again I will copy this one, integration name and integration version. It can be possible that later we change the version of integration so that we can also identify this record is inserted by which version of the same integration, so that all we can track using these all are the who columns, right? And if you see, there is one more thing missing, that's the record ID. For example, in a single run we got 100 record and all the 100 record we want to insert, so that 100 record will be inserted. But how you will identify which one is the record, right? Which one is your unique record and what is the record ID for that, right? So that's why we will create one more column that's named as record ID, and the type will be number, right? So that record ID we will use as 1 2 3 4 5 something. So for example, we have 10 record in table in data files to load into this table. So automatically this all 10 value will be inserted into record ID. So now here you can see in OIC in SQL we have one concept as a sequence. That sequence is something that by which we can auto generate the numeric value, number values, right? The numbering values, not numeric limited only. So numbering values. For that we have to create first sequence. For creating the sequence, I already have one sequence query added here. So let's see, this is the sequence table syntax to create sequence. So I will share you this code. You can use the same code. I'm not just going to like teach you that SQL, so don't worry about that. I'm just giving you the basic brief on that. So this is a syntax to create sequence. That sequence is going to hold a sequence values that can start from anywhere to end to anywhere. So here you can see we given the name as FOAS. Will use same, and this is not the table, so I will use seq, just is saying that sequence, so that when you any of the one any developer will come back and see the name, they can easily identify, okay, this is sequence, oh this is table, that kind of thing. That's why we are using the naming convention. So this is our sequence name, and the sequence minimum value, that's the starting point, is we want to give a starting point as 10001, let's 1001 only. And that the maximum value I given this random 999, so that it can go up to 2 next, too much next, and the incremented by 1 only, because we know that for each and every record we have to pass one value only. The no cycle, I don't want to repeat this again and again. And cache is 1000, something that in a single hit it will generate 100 sequence, and that sequence will be used internally by SQL one by one. So that kind of things is there, right? So now here first we have to create this sequence, so just select this one and execute. So by selecting you this, you can see our sequence is created. Now the same sequence we have to use in this table, so that whenever we will hit any record in this table, we don't need to pass the this record ID value, it will automatically pick from here. That's why we have concept as a default here, default constant. So default constant will allow us to set a default value to this record. So the default value for this record we want to set is the sequence of this value. So here this is the sequence, and for getting the sequence of this sequence we have next val. Next val is the attribute of the sequence which give us the next value for the sequence. So how you can check that one? If you can see, this is the sequence we created. If you want to see the value, use select this one sequence dot next val from dual. So if you will see, you will be able to see the sequence value. So the next sequence value is 1001. If I will execute, it will give us the next sequence value. You can see 1002. If we will execute, it will give us 1003, 1004, so on. So each and every time, whenever we will insert any record in that, it will pick the new sequence, and that new sequence by default loaded into this column. That sequence column is done here. Now here you can see we missed two more columns. The two more columns is the status. The status, and obvious status again will be varchar 2 only, and we'll give the type as of for the status is only one is so here we will use value as n for new, v for validate, e for error, s for success, that kind of things we are going to use. So here it will be like n for new, v for validate, e for error, s for success. So we have only one character here, that's the notation only, right? You can use anything, even you can use full value as new new in the status. So it's all depend on you that what logic you want to add. So here again this stage value, this status value, let we will pass from that OIC, or even we can this status value we can set as a default, so that whenever new record will be inserted, it will pass the same value. So let me set a default value, default, and default I want to set as N, capital N, just like we said the default is this sequence. And another column is the process message, right? So why we are using all these values? So I'm just going to give you a brief on that. So let me pass new value as new. So we are using this who columns, all these who columns, just to get the details of this record, right? For example, we have one record inserted into this table, and that record we are going to process in our integration, right? So this status will hold you the status of that specific record. That record is new that we added, or that record we already validated, we can process further, or that record having error, and what is the error message that we can store here. So just like this is new record, so I given new, and this will store an ew new only. So that kind of things, each and every table whenever you will create in OIC, you must use all these features which we I used here, right? All this column, that's the quite standard thing, right? So these all consider as a who column. This is always the record ID for each and every one, and these four are your only columns which you require. For example, I have to create another table which will store the AP invoices information. So I will create table which will store AP invoice column, but the table will change the value only for this four. So instead of this four, what all AP invoice column we want to insert here, we will create call. Okay, we will give the column name here. Remaining this, we will use same for each and every table. So that's quite coding standard that when you will follow, so that it will be easy for you to track your records. So now here our code is ready to create table. I will just hit this button so that this table will be created, and you will be able to see the table created message, you can see. So here we got error that inserted values too large for the column. Which column we have the too large values? So let me see. Let me provide the correct syntax first. Okay. So here you can see we have the process message column. We given varchar two one. One is the 1 byte. And how many records are there? Column are there? Three character. That's 3 bytes. So that's why it's showing it error. So instead of one, I will use 100. Or not only 100, I will pass the maximum length of that varchar variable is 4000. So we will use 4000 so that we can store even error message to this in the columns, right? So now I'm just going to run this one again. So you can see table FOSTRA student TB is created. So if you will see the records inside this table, you will not be able to find any record. Select a star from this table. We will not be able to see, right? We don't have any records. So if we will store any records, and if we want to insert any record, let us use insert into table name, and which column we want to insert value. Let's insert value for this column. Employee name, employee class, and I want to insert value for this column as, let's say, integration ID, OIC instance ID, right? So these three value we want to store, insert into tables. I will use values, and these three values in sequence we have to provide. So let me provide employee name as Alex, and employee class is ninth, and that OIC instance ID is, let's example, 1000, right? So this is our OIC instance ID which I just have to insert. So now where is this missing keywords? Select values. The correct keyword is values. So you can see one record inserted, and if you will hit this select queries, you will be able to see one record inserted. And here you can see we just given three values, right? Alex, ninth, and this instance ID 00. But by default we got this three column. That record ID as 1005, status as new, and process message as an EW new. So why we got? Because in the table we added these three column as default value. You can see the first default value which is going to store the sequence, next default value which is going to store the status, and this is the process. Why I explain you all these things? Just because when I will use this same insert command from OIC, you will get to know about all this one, right? So how we are getting all these record. So right now all these columns are empty because we have not inserted all these values. So will this value insert from OIC only? So let's move to the OIC to use this one. And obvious, you have to identify that what is the schema of this table, right? Because if you remember, while explaining this too, I told you that when you will use that operation, you have to select the schema first. That schema will allow you to select the object from that schema. So how you will get to know what is the schema? So obvious, for checking the schema, you just, this is our table name. So in OI, in SQL or PLSQL, whatever you are creating, that is considered as an object. So that's why we have one table name as select star from all objects. So this table holds the all objects created in this database. If you will execute, you will be able to see lots of objects are there. And here you can see the column name is object name, which is going to store the object values. So here I will give the name name of our object. So we'll give the name as where object name is equal to whatever our object name is. Our object name is this table, right? So now you can see once we'll execute this query, we will be able to see this object only. And what is the schema? You can see the schema is ATP user. This is our schema. So let me copy this schema. This will be used in upcoming days. So yeah, so let's move to OIC. This is our OIC. So first here, using this endpoint, we will be able to get data from request payload, right? The data we have to insert into table. For inserting data into table, right? So here we can have lots of records, right? So as we configure our request payload as a array element, it can be multiple records, right? For adding this for iterating this multiple record, that's why we have for each loop, right? In OIC we have for each loop. So here what I will do, I will just use for each loop here. So now here you can see it's asking the repeated element. So where is our repeated element or the data? Data is in execute and request wrapper. So the request wrapper having node as student information. This is the save node here, and this node will have all these four columns. So if you will expand, you will be able to see all these four column: name, class, role, subject. This is our array element, that the multiple box. I will drag this array element here. So this is the loop, and here we have to give the loop variable name. So first I will give the loop name. So loop name I will give that employee, this student, sorry, student for each, student for each, right? This is the loop name, and this loop variable name I always use the name underscore loop var. So just click outside so that your loop will be configured. So now you can see our loop is configured here. So now inside the loop we have to use insert operation, this same insert operation, so that we can insert record into the table. So this insert operations, this is the insert operation we can use. So from where we can use, so that we have to use the SQL script. That SQL script we can use in our ATP connection, that we have one of the operations as run a SQL statement. So we can use run a SQL statement. Also we can use one more operation, that's the perform an operation on table. That perform an operation on table allow us to use below operations. So as we have to just insert, so instead of using the select run a SQL statement, I will go for this insert operation. That's a bit easy. I will show you that what is the use of that too. So here I have to use ATP connections to perform operation on ATP database. So I will click here, select the ATP connection. So here you can see the latest connection created is visible here. What is the name of the connection? FOS underscore ATP underscore connection. This is the connection which we created, right? So I will select this connection here. And you can see when we selected the connection, it's asking for configuration page. So let's give the name as, so as I am going to use, I'm going to insert data using these endpoints. I will give the name as insert, and this is ATP endpoints. I will give them insert ATP. Here we have to select the operations. So by just clicking here or anywhere, you will get to select the options. So I will just select the option as perform an operation on table. So once you selected this one, you will be able to see the select option. So which information or which operation we have to select? We have to select operation as insert. So I selected this insert operation. Just click on continue. Once you will click on continue, the new configuration page will be open, where you have to select the schema first. So what is our schema? So we already get to know our schema, that's the ATP user. So I will select this schema here. So once you will select your schema here, you have to select the table name. So what is your table name? So either you can provide full table name, you can, this is our table which we created, or you can provide the, you can see that wildcard operator just like the employee or EMP percentage. For example, you don't know full table name, right? So what you can do, this is, I know that this can be our table, so I will just go and provide the percentage here. After providing the percentage, what you want to search, what you want to search, table, views, synonyms and all. So mostly we are going for table only, so by default table is there, let it be the same. Just click on search. So whatever table name created with this starting name, it will list down below. So here you can see, if you go below, you will be able to find the table name. This is our same table name, FOS 3R8 Training S21 TV. You can see this one. So now just select here and go below. You can see the so select here and just click on this right this arrow, so that this will be moved to this selected section. And just you have to click on this import button. So import button will allow you to import this table into the configuration page here. So you can see once you selected that one, it's asking you to select a primary key. So as our table doesn't have any primary key, so that's why it's asking us to select here only, right? Here you can see we created table. In the table we have not selected any column as a primary key, right? Any column as a primary key. That's why here it's asking for that. So if you will see, you can create this record ID as a primary key too, as we already said the sequence, and sequence cannot be repeated, we know, but let it be the same as right now. So just select any of the column as a primary key. So why this asking to select as a primary key? So that you cannot insert the null values. Or obvious, while inserting the data, we require at least one record. That's why it's asking to select any of the column as a primary key, so that you cannot skip that column if you don't have any of the record. This is the same as when we are selecting the mandatory columns in state file operations or FTP while writing the file, right? Or while creating reading the file. So here that's the done. So click on, I will just make this record ID as a primary key. This primary key is not going to make your table column as a primary key, right? It's just for reference purpose of OIC, so that it can understand that yes, this column cannot be empty in any case. So just go continue. And when we are saying that empty, it means that it can have null records, but at least one record should be there, right? So that's the meaning of that one. So once you will select this table and you will select the operations, you will able to see this configuration page. You will be able to see the table name. Go below, we have few more operations. Will not focus on this right now, but and also you can see here we have one more option as add, and we have one more option as remove. If you want to add another table, you can add the table. And we can also use this add operations to refresh this table name here. So that's, we'll see, I will tell you that how we can use. Just click on continue and done. So as we selected the table, and the table having all the column listed which we are able to see, so that's done. So click on finish. So table will be added here in the endpoint. So now you can see our TP endpoint is added here successfully, and you just have to click here in this one. So once you will click in the mapper, you have to provide the data. So you can see this is the mapper where we have to provide the data. So just click here, and you can see these all are the column which we have in the table. These all are the column which we had in the table. So let me first provide the mapping for the column which we have coming from records. So this request payload we will not select, because we already added the loop on this request payload. So we will select the loop variable, so that it and every time it will iterate and it will insert data into the table. So as this is loop variable will store single record, that's why I will not add this array mapping. Why this array mapping is there, I will also tell you that one. So just right now I will use single records. So don't need to select this endpoint, just select the name. As this is single records, the name will be go to employee name, class will go for employee class, roll number will move to the employee role, and the subject will move to the employee subject. So now this remaining column we have to pass. As you can see, the record ID is set as default, so that we don't need to pass any value to this record ID. Status is also default. Process message is also default. Now we have to add these all remaining column. So the remaining column is OIC instance ID. And where is the OIC instance ID? OIC instance ID in the metadata. Just go back, runtime, we will get that OIC instance ID. So I will give the OIC instance ID here. And it's asking the integration name. So where is our integration name? So integration name will get as a integration details. You can see this integration name I will map here. Integration version also we will get here, and the date. So date is something that we will use the current date which we already use in a state file. You will just give few values and click on enter. You will be able to see value. So enter details I will map here in the creation date. So as of now, this is the first time we are going to hit record into table. So creation date and last update date will be same. So I will drag this creation date here too. So instead of using date, I will use date and time too. So that minute, hour, second can also be stored here. So that we can do comparison between creation date and last update date. So here also in creation date, I will select this one, remove this is coming twice, this one, date and time. That's mapped here. Let me confirm that the last updated having the date and time or not. No, it's not because we didn't save earlier. So it's map here and click on save. So now these two value got mapped. Here we have to provide the created by. Created by who? Created by the user who run this integration, right? So from where you will get the name of user who run this integration? By using invoked by. So this is the user who run this integration. Now last value is missing by last updated value. Obvious this is the first time this record is going to hit to the table or inserting the table. So created by or last updated by will be the same. So next time when we will use update operation, so in case of update operation, we will not update the value for this created by column or the last update or the creation date column. These two column we will insert or use only while inserting the data first time, and next time while updating we will just use these two column to change, so that we will get to know that creation date is something that when the record inserted into table, and update date and time is something that when record updated, and the record updated can be multiple times. That's the concept we are generally using, right? And obvious all this you have to use in your projects too. So just go back. So we added this. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, correct. Mhm. Hmm. I need to check that too. So let me check right now only. So here process message. No, no. So we will check. So in process message, what default value we set? We set default value as capital NEW, right? So let me pass value here as a small NEW, right? New. Let's see that what's going to happen. So just validate. Go back. So now here you can see we have the records inserted into table. After that we have to return response from this integration. So just click here, and what response we want to return? All this information, right? Status, process message, total count, and all these things, right? Total inserted and all, right? So right now we have not added much logic to retrieve all these things. So just for uh, right now purpose, what I will do, I will select status. I will use as hardcode instead of providing the value direct here in the mapping. I will use the variable here, the default variable. In the default variable I will provide the mapping, so that I will show you that later how we can utilize this variable in some other purpose too. So as this is our first action, that assign we added here, and obvious before going to proceed further in integration we are using this assign, so that this assign can store the variable. That variable can be used further in our integration. So if you remember in last session also I given the name as default, as this is going to be considered as a default value only. Default that we can use create variable, and that variable can be used further in integration default, and this is assign action. Now here we have to click the variable. So what variable we have to use? So first we have to create one variable. That variable can store the status. So I will give the name as var underscore integration status. This is the one variable which we given, and the integration status initially I will give as as that is known as success, right? And here I will create another variable. That variable value will store, name will be var underscore integration process message. and by default I will provide the value as integration completed successfully. So what is the reason behind using this? I will explain you. And what was the remaining response? So remaining response was all this we will get from the count only, right? So let it be the same. Click here. Now here you can see why I created variable. For example, while inserting data into table, if we got any error, so that we will update the variable and we will set the message as error. And then when we will map the variable here, so that we didn't need to update again and again here. So that's why I will go to the mapping here. Instead of providing the hard-coded value, I will map the value from variable. So where is the variable? That variable we created, that var integration status, and next is where integration process message and the total count. So where we will get the total count? So we will get the total count from the request payload only. So this is the array element. That array element hold the number of records, and we know that in OIC we have one function's name as count. If you will search here, count function give you the count record, the array element. So which one is our array element? So this where is this one? The student info is our array node, right? So I will just map this node here. So you can see this node is between count function. The count function will return total number of value inside this node. So just done. The same I will use for remaining columns too, as right now I have not added the logic to handle the exceptions. And in the mapping you can use the copy paste value. So I just copy the value from the first total count and use the same here. Just click here. You can see the same node is going to map here. Now I will use the same values here. Validate and back. Go back. Okay. So this integration having one error because we know that each and every integration should have at least one business identifier. So just click here and you just have to select the business identifier. So I will select the business identifier as a student name. Click outside, and we already know that why we are using that business identifier, just for tracking purpose, right? So that if we want to check the integration, we can track from the we can obviously track from that integration monitoring dashboard too. So you can see our integration is configure status. We just have to activate this integration. Just click on this power button, go to debug and activate. I selected debug so that I can show you log messages too. So that's done. So integration is activated. Now we have to run this integration. Click here and body and run. So here you can see this is a sample payload which we given while configuring the request payload. So instead of that we have to provide the value. So this is our request payload. I will copy this request payload and let me create value here. So let me provide the value. So name I will pass as Alex, class as 10th, roll number as 1001, or will give 100, and the subject as C++. Another name I will give as Sam, class as 10th, and the roll number is 1001, and subject I will give as Java. Let me add one more student information. You can see we given comma so that it can make a next record. We'll give the name as John. It is also in 9th class, and the roll number is 1003, and the subject he is going to it is OIC. So this is our request payload which we already ready. So just copy this request payload here, delete previous one and paste it here. So this is the request payload which OIC will accept. Just I will click on run, and here you can see this is the node, right? The student information node which we configure. If you will provide any invalid node, you will get an error, right? So here let me pass invalid node only. So info is the correct node. If I will pass info A, it will generate an error because in OIC it will look for the student info only, and we have not passed info, right? So you can see you will get an error. Here is this. uh, okay, so here you can see we added the loop, right? We added the loop over the endpoint, and the loop didn't execute it because they didn't find that node with student info. So that's why they didn't executed this loop and they directly moved to the next outside the loop and they process the message. I thought that it will generate an error when looking at the mapping, but that's fine. So let me remove this node from here. So this is the correct node which we provided. So when we will run this integration, so this lookup will find this node, and based on the node, whatever number of record is there, this loop will iterate that number of times, and inside the loop we added the ATP endpoint to insert the record into table, so that operation will perform. So just click on run, and it's taking time because it's loading the running the loop on that, and each and every time inserting record into the table. So is there any issue in the DB connection? Let's see. Yeah, it's working fine. Here we are able to query in the table, and here you can see we got record, right? So you can see this record inserted, integration got completed, and what is the status? You can see status is as process message is the same which we hard coded, integration completed successfully, total count 3, and this is the same we processed, right? Provided record inserted and all. So right now we have not handled any exception, right? So in the next session I will show you how we can handle the exception. If for example while inserting data, if we got any error, how that error can be handled. So the error handling concept we will learn in next session. You can see we have 3 records, the loop iterated 3 times. Inside the loop, each and every iteration you will be able to find that endpoint that invoke inside ATP, and if you will expand invoke inside ATP, here you can see this is the message which we send, and the same message which we pass, that LX1001 roll number, and here you can see all these are the information. Here you will not be able to see the record ID because that's the default, and somewhere we pass that one mapping, right? Status as new. You can see this is the status as new, and let's see that what is the status in table. Yeah, here you can see. So when we are passing the mapping, it overriding the default value. So it's picking the value from mapping only. So I hope you got your questions answer, right? Yeah. So here all the records what we pass from that table, from the integration, that's inserted into this table. The 3 records are there, and what is the, and here we don't have a record ID, right? The record ID is not there. Default. This should be there, right? So let me run this again. Let's see what's missing here. So because this is taking, next time we run this integration again, it will hit the 3 record. You can see it's showing the 2 iteration only. When I will refresh, it will be able to see all the others. So you can see right now 3 iteration are there. So let me check this table again. Why we are not getting that one? Sorry, this one is start, and here you can see this time we have next 3 records. I will check that why we are not getting this record ID. But here you can see the remaining information are stored in this table, and you can see the OIC instance ID which we inserted from this mapping. So the instance ID you can see this is the instance ID, this 10A. You can see the 10A instance ID are there. OIC instance ID. This is the user. This is the integration version. This is the integration creation date. And you can see all the record having different creation date. The second and millisecond you can see that's the different, because it's taking time to insert record into this table. Created by is the our OIC user, and the last updated by against the same creation date we map, and the last updated by the same user. So now we'll see in the next when we will use insert update operation how we will update all these columns. So here for example you can see even if we will do any changes in the table, so how the changes will reflect in this OIC also we will get to know in the next session. So thank you so much for joining today's session. Let's wrap up for today. We'll connect tomorrow and we'll see that how we can handle the exceptions, and that obvious the changes which we are going to do in the our database. So how the database changes will reflect in OIC. So as obvious it's by default it will not reflect, but what we have to do so that the changes will reflect here. For example, you will add extra column here. That column will automatically not reflect in this OIC. So that all these things we are going to learn in next session. Thank you so much everyone for joining.